Hi everyone. Before we begin, I would like to emphasize that this video is separate from my work and is part of my desire and effort to bring zero-cost information to developers. So today I will try to explain you what is the concept of aspects with Bazel. So according to Bazel documentations, aspects allow augmenting building dependency graph with additional information and actions, which means in simpler terms that you can run Bazel actions in parallel to the existing building dependency graph. So you can see it as some kind of a visitor pattern. In short, you can add Bazel actions to each node of the graph you're building. So as an example, let's imagine we have such a build graph. So here we have a CC binary called main that is linked to a CC library called lib through its dependency. So here's the build graph viewed through the dependency attributes. And if you run an aspect onto this build graph, you will run two actions. The first action on the library and then an actions on the main. And those actions can be anything that Bazel can do, like building files, creating files, gathering data, etc. And what's important to note with aspects is that it's non-intrusive, meaning that the existing build graph will not be altered. It's just things to augment what is already there. So you will not have to rewrite CC binary. You will not add existing magic to a build graph. Yeah, so let's go through a small tutorial to see how to use them. So let's start with a simple example. In this example, we'll use a build file we already created in a previous video, which is simply a CC binary that depends on the CC library through depth attributes, similar to the example I showed you just before. So aspects are written through a Bazel file. So let's create myaspect.bazel. We'll create a function that will be called each time we go through a node. So let's declare this function. We'll call it counter aspect impl. It takes two arguments, and we'll print each time we go through this function. So now we can create the aspect that will call this function. As we see, we use aspect here as a keyword instead of rule. We pass it the implementation, and important thing is this attribute at aspect, which means that we will consider a build graph through its dependency as edges. So now we can run it already. So we'll run it on the example main as we saw before. So onto this target. We just need to pass now the aspect that we built. So we provide the name of the file and the function, so the aspect here that we just created. And we execute. And as you see, it went through two different nodes. So the debug statement was print twice. And it started first with the library, so deep down, and then up to the main. All right. So now what we can do is to try to pass data through the different stages, so the different nodes here. How do we gather data through the graph of this aspect? So for that, we use something called providers. We'll call it counter provider. We give it a field with the field we want. We just call it value and the description. Now, inside the counter aspect impl function, we need to increase this value. So this value will represent the number of nodes this function goes through. So we initialize this value to 1, and each time we go through this function, we look at the dependency of the context, and we increase this value by the value provided by counter provider. We'll also print this value for demo purpose. And we need, of course, to return also this provider. So to the next node that uses this aspect. And this is how aspect data are propagating. So now we can run it again with the same command. All right, and now we see that example mylib has only one node. So because it's the deepest dependency, and example has two nodes. So the first node is mylib and himself. So this is one way to use aspects. There's another way is through directly through rules. So what we can do now is to create actually a rule that will use this specific aspect. So let's try that. So we'll create the implementation of a rule. We'll just go through the different targets that we created as a rule. So we'll give to this rule a target attribute that will take all the all the rules we want to use through this aspect, and that will just print a statement. So print the value. And what's important now is we'll create this rule, and that's where the magic happens. So we use rule, we use the implementation as the function we did before. And then in the attributes, we tell that all the targets attributes, which are like a list of label, use the aspect that we declared before. So this is the link between basically the aspect we created and the rule. And now when we instantiate this rule, so let's first instantiate this rule within our build file. So we create a rule, give it a name, counter, and as a target, we give it the example main target that we did. So now when we run this specific rule, it will also run the target. So let's try now. So Bazel build this counter rule. And as you see, it's also running the rule that we created. So it called exactly this. So that's all for today. I hope that was helpful. And if so, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.